Do this, and your specific person cannot stop thinking about you. Neville Goddard taught that the mind you long to reach is never far away. It is only a state within your own imagination. And the moment you enter that state within yourself, the person outside begins to feel you without knowing why. There is a verse in the Song of Solomon that Neville Goddard loved to open like a door. It reads, "I sleep, but my heart waketh. It is the voice of my beloved that knocketh." That is the Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 2. And Neville would stop you right there and say, "Do you see it? The beloved is not a person standing outside your window in the middle of the night. The beloved is your own desire, your own imagination, knocking at the door of your deeper mind while your outer senses lie still. And the heart that wakes while the body sleeps is the same heart you use every night when you drift toward sleep, still feeling the presence of the one you love. So many of you have tried to reach your specific person through the door-marked action, through texting first, through trying to look a certain way, through waiting for them to notice you. And Neville would say gently, that is the very door that keeps them from thinking of you, because you cannot draw a state to yourself by chasing it outside yourself. You can only enter it, and once you enter it, it is already yours. So before we go any further, let us claim it together, right here, right now. Say it with me. I am the presence my person cannot stop thinking of. I am already living in the warmth of their constant thought of me. Imagination creates my reality. And again, I am the presence my person cannot stop thinking of. I am already living in the warmth of their constant thought of me. Imagination creates my reality. And if you would like tomorrow's teaching to find you the same quiet way this one did, simply subscribe before you go any further. Now, if something in you just went still when you heard those words, if some old ache just loosened its grip, type the two words, "It's done," right there in the comments, and let it be your seal. The first key is this: stop watching their phone. Stop watching whether they texted back. Stop watching the little green dot that tells you they were online an hour ago. And start watching the only screen that ever mattered, the screen of your own imagination, because it is not their behavior that decides how they feel about you, it is your assumption that decides it. Picture a woman named Claire who checks her phone 40 times a day, waiting for a message from a man she cannot stop thinking about. Every hour that passes without a reply convinces her a little more that she has been forgotten. And by evening she is living, breathing, and speaking from that very state. She snaps at her sister, she picks at her dinner, she lies in bed replaying his silence as though it were a verdict handed down by some higher court, when in truth the only court in session all day was the one inside her own mind, and she was both the judge and the unwilling defendant. Neville Goddard would say, "Of course he has not called. You have spent all day being the person he forgets. Imagination is the only cause there is. Not his mood, not his schedule, not the timing of the moon, only the state Claire has been assuming since she woke. Notice how much of your day has been spent reading their behavior like scripture, hunting for meaning in a delayed reply, a shorter sentence, a missing exclamation mark, and how little of it has been spent simply feeling the reality you want without needing a single shred of evidence for it. That imbalance is the whole trouble. It is not that you lack power, it is that you have been pointing all of it at the wrong screen. And today, you begin to correct that. Here is what changes everything. Instead of watching for a sign that he is thinking of her, Claire must assume, quietly, without any proof at all, that he already is. She must feel, even 60 seconds at a time, the specific warmth of being remembered, not begged for, not chased, simply remembered the way you remember a song you love and hum, without deciding to. This is not pretending. Neville was clear that pretending without feeling changes nothing. This is choosing, on purpose, to inhabit the inner conversation of someone already thought of fondly, already missed a little, already smiled about in a quiet moment of someone else's day. It is not their attention you are managing, it is your own state. And the moment you stop treating their silence as information and start treating your own feeling as the only true report, the whole search reverses direction. They begin, without knowing why, to search for you. I am the one who assumes first and watches second. The second key is, the person you long for is not a fortress you must storm. They are a room in your own mind you are always free to enter. Neville Goddard taught that everyone lives, moves, and thinks from a state. And a state is simply a room in the house of imagination that you can walk into or walk out of at will. Most people believe their specific person is somewhere out there, unreachable, guarded, requiring the right words, the right timing, the right outfit, the right amount of distance, so they spend their days pacing outside a fortress that was never locked, when Neville would remind them, "The door was inside you the entire time. It is not their heart you must break into. It is your own imagination you must walk into. And once you are standing quietly inside that room, there is nothing left to storm." Think of a man named Daniel who wanted a woman named Rosa to think of him the way he thought of her. He tried clever texts. He tried disappearing to seem mysterious. He tried showing up where she might be, and none of it moved anything, because he was still standing outside, still trying to be let in from without, until one evening he simply stopped, sat quietly in a chair, closed his eyes, and imagined being in the room with her already, not doing anything dramatic, just sitting near her the way two people sit near each other when there is no more distance left to cross. He felt the ease of it, the naturalness of it, the way you feel when you are already home and no longer trying to get there. Notice what he did not do. He did not imagine convincing her. He did not imagine explaining himself. He simply occupied the feeling of already belonging. Because Neville taught that the wish fulfilled has no argument in it, only rest. He did this for a few minutes most evenings, not gripping it, not straining, simply visiting the room the way you might visit a garden you already own. And within days her messages changed in tone, became warmer, became more frequent, and Daniel understood. He had not manipulated her. He had simply stopped standing at the gate of a fortress that existed only in his own belief, and started living in the room that was always open, the room within his own imagination where she already thought of him kindly. Consider how differently this reads from the way most of us were taught to chase. We were taught that closeness is earned through effort on the outside, through the right timing, the right performance. But Neville would say closeness is entered, not earned. The way you enter a familiar room in your own house without needing permission from the walls. This is what he meant when he said the world is a mirror. You are not changing another person. You are changing the room you occupy, and everyone connected to that room begins to re-hour. The third key is the small conversations you carry about your person all day long. The imaginary ones, the ones nobody else can hear, are not idle daydreams. They are prayers, and Neville Goddard called them controlled conversations, or implied conversations, because the conversation you allow yourself to imagine over and over, without correcting it, becomes the very conversation life arranges to fulfill. He taught that imagination is always at work, whether you are steering it or not. And the tragedy for most people is that they assume they are only imagining when they sit down on purpose to daydream, when in truth they are imagining every waking hour, in the tone of every silent sentence they rehearse about the one they love. Let us walk through an ordinary day the way most people actually live it, without ever noticing what they are doing. At 7 in the morning she wakes, and the first thought is, "I wonder if he even thinks about me anymore." That is a conversation, a sad one, spoken silently to no one. At 9, on the commute, she imagines a friend asking about him, and hears herself say, "Oh, it's complicated. He barely reaches out." That is another conversation, rehearsed and believed. At noon, over lunch, she catches herself replaying the last time he seemed distracted, Adding dialogue to it, imagining him annoyed with her, that is a conversation too, and by 3 in the afternoon she has, without ever once sitting down to formally imagine anything, held 4 or 5 inner conversations that all agree on one theme, that she is easy to forget, and Neville would say, "Look how faithfully your imagination has been working all day. Look how much conscious creating you have already done, only in the wrong direction. This is the mercy hidden inside the key. If you can create that vividly by accident, you can create just as vividly on purpose." Consider a man named Victor who spent an entire Sunday certain that the woman he loved had grown cold toward him. Nothing had actually happened between them that day. No cross word, no silence, only a memory from a week before that he kept narrating to himself. By breakfast, he had imagined telling his brother that things felt distant. By mid-morning, he had imagined her sighing at the mention of his name. By evening, he had built, sentence by sentence, an entire drama of rejection out of a single afternoon that had already passed. And when she finally called that night warm and ordinary, he almost could not hear her through the noise of the conversation he had been having with himself all day. Neville would say, Victor had been praying diligently, only he had been praying for exactly the coldness he feared. So here is the practice. The moment you notice yourself replaying a conversation that hurts, you do not scold yourself. You simply write a better scene. Right there in your mind, if a friend were to ask about him, imagine yourself answering warmly, "He has been so attentive lately. I love how present he's been." If you catch yourself imagining him distracted, gently replace it with the memory of him smiling at something you said. Feel the warmth of that instead. You are not lying. Neville taught that you are choosing which state to occupy, and the state you occupy on the inside is the state the world must arrange itself around on the outside. Pause for a moment now and notice one conversation you have been repeating about your person this very week. Ask yourself plainly, is this the conversation I want proven true? And if it is not, begin, gently, to write the other one, not with clenched effort, but the way you might hum a kinder tune over a sad one, until the sad one fades on its own. It is not what you say to your person that shapes what returns to you. It is what you say about them when no one at all is listening. Do this a handful of times a day, catching the old conversation, replacing it kindly with the one you would rather live in. And within a week you will notice your outer conversations, the real ones, beginning to rhyme with the ones you have been having quietly within. I govern the conversation I carry, and it governs what returns to me. The fourth key is revision, the quiet art Neville Goddard taught for taking a day that went wrong and simply refusing to leave it that way. He taught that the day is not finished being written until you sleep, which means the exchange that stung you this afternoon is still, right now, unfinished business in your imagination. And imagination, not memory, has the final word. Most people treat the day like a courtroom record, fixed, sealed, admissible forever. They say, well, that is just what happened, as though the past were made of stone. But Neville taught that the past is made of the same substance as the future. It is made of imagination, and imagination can always be entered again. Pause for a moment and pick one real exchange from today. A text that felt cold, a call that ended too fast, a moment where your person seemed distant. Hold it gently in your mind. Now replay it not as it happened, but as you wish it had gone. Hear warmth in words that felt cold. Hear them lingering, saying, wait, tell me more. I like hearing your voice. Feel it, not as fantasy, but as the true version of the day that deserves to exist. Revision is not denial of what happened. It is authority over what happened, because the event was only ever a shadow cast by the state you stood in when it occurred. Change the state now. With feeling, and the shadow changes shape to match it. Think of a man named Ethan who came home replaying a text from his person, short, distracted, 3 words and nothing more. He carried it all evening like a stone in his pocket, building a story of rejection out of those 3 words. That night, instead of falling asleep inside it, he lived the exchange again, imagining her writing back warmly, saying she had simply been swamped and thinking of him all day. He sent no real message. He simply revised the scene within, until something softer sat where the sting had been. And by the next afternoon, she reached out first, warm, unhurried, exactly as he had imagined her. A woman he once counseled told him a breakfast with her husband had gone badly. And rather than carry it all day, she sat 5 quiet minutes that evening and lived it over the way she wished it had gone. Gentle, understood, and reported the coldness between them dissolved by nightfall, as though the harsh version never had the strength to hold. This is the mercy folded into revision. You are never punished forever for a scene you are willing to rewrite. I closed the day exactly as I wished it had opened. The 5th key is the one Neville Goddard returned to more than any other, the state akin to sleep. And here, everything you have practiced so far comes together into something almost effortless. First, consider why sleep matters. Neville taught that in the moment just before true sleep takes you, the arguing, doubting mind grows quiet, and the deeper mind, the one that actually shapes your outer world, lies open the way soil lies open after rain. This is why he called it the state akin to sleep. Not sleep itself, but the drowsy threshold just before it. And it is here that a single feeling planted with sincerity takes root faster than 100 anxious thoughts planted during the busy hours of noon. So understand timing first. You do not fight your person's attention during the loud hours of the day. You cultivate it during the quiet hour before sleep, when resistance itself has gone to sleep before you have. Second, consider what you actually do in that drowsy moment. You do not narrate a long story about them. You choose one small, natural scene, the kind that would only happen if what you desire were already true. Perhaps the feeling of your phone lighting with their name and the leap of warmth in your chest. Perhaps the sound of their voice, saying your name the way they say it when glad to hear from you. And you do not watch this scene like a movie. You feel it from inside your own body. As though remembering rather than imagining, Neville taught that the difference between a wish and an answered prayer is only this feeling of already having received, so you feel the small scene as already true, and let that feeling carry you the rest of the way into sleep, so the last state you occupy before unconsciousness is the very state you wish to wake up living from. A woman named Teresa had spent months wishing a man named Marcus thought of her the way she thought of him. Every night her habit was the same, phone in hand, scrolling until her eyes grew heavy, half watching for his name, half dreading it would not come. For 1 week she set the phone across the room instead, and in the dark, she pictured one small thing only, the exact sound of Marcus laughing at something she said, warm, easy, unguarded. On the first night it took nearly 10 minutes to feel anything. Her mind kept wandering to the day's disappointments, and each time it wandered she brought it back gently to that one sound. By the 3rd night, the feeling came more quickly. By the 5th night she fell asleep smiling before finishing the scene. And on the 7th day, without prompting, Marcus texted her at 10 in the morning simply to say her name had crossed his mind. Teresa had not manipulated him, she had only soaked, night after night, in the one feeling she wanted him to have about her, and the world, being a mirror, eventually had to show that feeling back. Third, consider those who skip this and instead lie awake analyzing, replaying old conversations, wondering what he is doing now. Neville would say, whatever state you fall asleep in, you soak in all night, the way a stone left in dye takes the color of whatever it rested in when the light went out. Fall asleep anxious, and you have spent 8 hours steeping in anxiety and calling it rest, but fall asleep having felt, even briefly, the small warm scene of being remembered, and you have spent those same hours steeping in that instead. A few minutes of sincere feeling at the threshold of sleep outweighs hours of anxious talking during the day. Because it is not the length of the imagining that matters, it is the depth. Fourth, consider what to do when the feeling resists you. Some nights the day was hard, and the mind is loud. On such nights you do not force it, you soften instead. Perhaps beginning with simple gratitude for the bed beneath you, for the stillness of the room. And once that small gratitude has quieted you, you return gently to the one scene, the leap of warmth, the sound of your name spoken fondly. You are not failing if it takes longer some nights. You are only practicing a muscle that grows stronger the more patiently you use it. So tonight, when you lie down, do not check the phone one last time. Do not replay the day. Choose your one small scene, the leap of warmth, the sound of your name spoken fondly, and stay there, gently, feeling it as already so, letting your breathing slow inside that feeling, until sleep simply takes you from within it, rather than from the noise of the day. Do this night after night, because Neville taught that persistence in an assumption is what hardens it into fact. One warm night is a mood. 7 warm nights in a row is a new self-concept quietly forming, and a new self-concept always finds a way to make itself visible in the world of your affairs. Your person will begin to reach out at strange hours, will begin to say your name for no clear reason, will feel a pull they cannot explain, and will not try hard to resist, not because you manipulated anything, but because you have been sleeping, faithfully, inside the very state you wanted them to feel toward you. And states, Neville said, are like rooms. Whoever occupies the same room as you begins to feel what you feel there. I fall asleep already living inside the very love I wished for. The 6th key is, once you have planted the feeling, stop digging it up to check the roots. Neville Goddard taught that expectancy is a quiet, settled thing, not a restless checking thing. And most people undo the very state they work so hard to enter by reaching for their phone 40 times a day to see whether it worked yet. That is not expectancy. That is doubt wearing the costume of hope. True expectancy behaves like someone who has already mailed the letter. They do not stand at the mailbox willing the reply to appear sooner. They go on living, trusting what they cannot see. Think of a gardener named Tom who plants tomatoes every spring. He does not pull the seedling up by its roots each morning to check on the growing. He waters it, he leaves it in the sun, and he walks away and lives his day. This is the posture Neville asked you to hold. You feel the scene once, with sincerity, in the state akin to sleep, and then you let the days do what days do. A feeling constantly re-examined is a feeling never allowed to set. It is wet cement that never dries because a hand keeps pressing into it to test its hardness. Let it dry. Let your person go the way you let go of a planted seed. Not because you no longer care, but because you trust the ground. Keep returning nightly to the state akin to sleep. Keep guarding your daytime conversations. Keep revising the rough hours, and beyond all of that, release your grip. Do not demand a sign by Tuesday. Do not measure progress by their behavior. Remember the very first key. Watch your assumption, not their phone. This releasing is not indifference. It is the deepest confidence there is. The confidence of one already told yes, simply waiting on the paperwork. Expect the way the sun expects morning. Without straining, without checking the horizon, it comes because it is the nature of things, and your person's thoughts of you will come the same way, quietly, on schedule, because it is the nature of the state you have been living in. And often life brings you more than the message you wanted. It brings the person, softened, warmer, strangely drawn, calling at an hour they cannot justify, saying your name for no reason they can name, only responding, faithfully, to the state you have been living in all along, and so your specific person cannot stop thinking about you, not because you chase their attention, but because you finally stopped chasing it. I have planted the feeling, and I trust it in the dark. Here is the whole picture. It is not their behavior that moves them toward you. It is your assumption. It is not a fortress you must storm. It is a room within you always open. It is not idle daydreaming. It is the conversation you carry all day, quietly becoming prophecy. It is not the day that is finished. It is only finished once you have revised it kindly. It is not the loud striving of noon that plants anything lasting. It is the soft threshold of sleep, entered faithfully, night after night. And it is not checking that brings them closer. It is releasing your grip once the feeling is planted. And beneath all 6 of these, there was only ever one key, turned 6 different ways, that your specific person is not a separate mind you must persuade from the outside. They are a state within your own consciousness. And whatever state you occupy faithfully within yourself, you meet again, wearing their face, out here in the world. If you are ready to stop practicing this alone, piece by piece, and want it laid out for you morning and night for 3 full weeks, the 21-day reality shift was built exactly for this. A daily guided path of assumption, revision, and the state akin to sleep. Gentle enough for a beginner, deep enough for someone who has been circling this teaching for years. It is available now for a small one-time investment, fully covered by a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is truly nothing to risk, and everything already waiting to be lived. You will find the link in the description below. Say it with me one last time in your heart. I am the presence my person cannot stop thinking of. I am already living in the warmth of their constant thought of me. Imagination creates my reality. And so, gently, without checking, without straining, you go on doing exactly what you came here to do. You go on living the end. And your specific person, whether they understand it or not, simply cannot stop thinking about you.